today's lesson, I want to talk about grace, right? And there's more on this in the Bible than what I'm going to be able to cover in just one class. I mean, it's a major theme. It's like saying, okay, today I want to talk about Christianity, or we're going to talk about history today. So it's a big subject, and it's hard to go over this all in one. If there was a week that I may do a video on the side, it could be this, because I don't see any way I'm going to get through all my notes in today's class. So it's possible I might throw up a video onto your MyOSC for this week for some extra on grace. But I think this is one of the topics in the entire Bible that church people still have a hard time getting their mind around. And so when we look at Paul's teaching and Paul's emphasis, this was the one thing that he kept coming back to more than anything else, particularly when he was trying to reprimand churches. So we have, there's a phrase that Paul uses that I think is interesting, that we don't always have right. Paul says, "You have fallen from grace." Paul talks about fallen from grace. And so if I was to ask you what fallen from grace means, how would you define that? So if somebody said that to you in the church, that person, they've fallen from grace, what does that instantly start to cause your mind to think that they have done? That's one. So maybe some kind of backslidden state. What else does that make you think of? Just if you, so don't try and outthink me. But just if you heard that, if you heard that without anything that I've already talked about, just in general, if somebody said that in the church, what are they normally talking about? So we've got backslidden. I mean, that's the same. That's the basic idea. But what else, would this mean? Yeah, that they've started to sin a lot. They've fallen into sin of some kind, right? Okay. I guarantee you, most people, if they use that phrase, they've fallen from grace, or if they read that, they're thinking this person has started sinning in some capacity, right? So what does Paul mean when he says, you have fallen from grace? That they're not walking in grace, but what does that mean, to not walk in grace?
You're either not showing his favor towards others or recognizing his favor towards them.
It's the second one. His favor towards them. So when Paul is saying that you have fallen from grace, it is in the context of they are trying to earn salvation now again by what they do. And that they are now trying to earn salvation by works of the law, by observing the festivals, by observing circumcision, by trying to keep the law of Moses. And so whereas Paul is trying to teach them that you are saved utterly by what Christ did, not even what you did a little bit, right? That what you did is like filthy rags, that you are ultimately saved completely by what he did. And that is 100% he did. It's not even yours a little bit. That is the full understanding of grace. That you are forgiven 100% by Christ. It's not some of Christ and a little bit of what you did. That the ultimate thing is that it is grace. Not by works, lest any man should boast. That you are saved, and we have the hardest time with this in the church. Even today in the New Testament church, we have a hard time getting our mind around. We have the same, because we have the same human nature that they did in the early church, that we have a hard time getting our mind around the fact that it has nothing to do with me. That even my good things are not what keeps me in the kingdom, right? That it is Christ's forgiveness over my life. Now Paul says, does that do away with the law? No. That the law in itself is good. That we still want to do our best to live well, but that's not why you're forgiven, right? You are not forgiven because you are doing a good job at the law. So when Paul says that these people have fallen from grace, he is saying that they now understand their salvation as what they do, as opposed to understanding their salvation as by grace. So that's what that phrase, fallen from grace, means.
Can that be like fallen from grace and into judgment? Because they're either judging themselves or judging others.
Well, what it is he's saying that the only way to be saved is to understand it's absolutely the Lord. And so to be fallen from grace is to start believing now that it is your effort. And so what he's saying is that the way to separate yourself and to fall from grace and to enter into judgment is to begin to start thinking that you're saved by your own effort. And so that is the lie of the enemy, is to pervert the true meaning of grace. And so I think even in the church today, grace is not fully preached in its best way. There's a lot of good grace preachers. One that I would recommend, who I think has a gift to teach this well, is Joseph Prince.
Yeah. I did a whole year of that.
He's very good at explaining the core truth of grace, right? So if you wanted to read anybody's books or listen to anybody's DVDs on this subject, I would lean towards him as being somebody that I've read, and I say, well, yeah, he's got it. That's the way it should be. And so the idea is that if we can more fully understand the grace of Christ, then that frees us up from condemnation and guilt and allows us to walk not just in the forgiveness, but we're going to talk about this, that grace is more than just forgiveness. Grace, Paul talks about the gifts of the Spirit as being a grace of God. And so it is not just forgiveness, it is the power of God, all of it is His grace. It's not just the fact that we have been forgiven, it is what we have been forgiven to become that is also included in grace.
Yeah, I see it as the reason it's not spoken the way it is. People don't understand it, or they're afraid that it will give people a license to do.
So that is our time machine all the way back to first century Christianity. And this is what Paul deals with. He says, oh, you foolish one, should we sin so that grace should abound, right? If grace overcomes sin, then should we just sin a whole bunch so that we have a whole bunch of grace? And Paul says that's ridiculous, right? And that misses the point of the power of grace. And the real truth is that when somebody understands how much they've actually been forgiven and how much we were not able to accomplish this, then that causes you to love Christ to such a degree that sin becomes disgusting to you because of how much you understand of what He did for you. And so the true, and the message of all grace preachers, whether it's Joseph Prince or Paul or myself, Lord willing, or anyone that is truly understanding this grace understanding, is that it is the understanding of grace that sets you free from sin. Whereas, the person that doesn't understand grace says, oh, well, if you teach that everything has already been forgiven, then people will just do whatever. But that's not true. That the reality is that when people understand that they have been fully forgiven, the love that is born in them for Christ actually causes them to walk away from sin. It is people who are still under the law who have a hard time getting away from sin. We've all seen that thing where the person says, oh, I've been going around and around with the same sin. I can't quite seem to overcome it. What is the key word in there? I can't. Their mind is telling them it is up to them to be free. It happens a lot when I would counsel teenagers as a youth pastor with lust. That was a huge one growing up for a lot of the teen boys. Oh, I can't quite seem to break its grip, right? So what is that telling you about how their mind is? It's my determination. It's my effort, my strength alone, and I can't quite do it. The people who understand, oh, Christ took that from me. Yeah, Christ is, that sets them up. The ones that truly overcome it are the ones that understand that Christ has forgiven them. As long as they still think it's something that they have to do, they don't have the power to do it. That's what Paul says all the way through, is that nobody has the power to live the law perfectly, and you will continue to struggle in sin if you don't understand this, because you will think it's up to you, and you have fallen from grace, and you can't get out of your sin because you think it's up to your own effort. When the truth of the matter is, it is what you believe about this that frees you spiritually, because it's by faith, right? That if you have the faith to believe this.